One of the most situations are divorce and taxes, or specifically tax debt with the IRS, because there's so many angles that come into play, including what state you're located in, what you guys did during the marriage. And the reason why I say that is because typically when I've seen in a household where you have the breadwinner, the income earner, and versus the stay-at-home parent, the stay-at-home mom, and upon a divorce, everything gets separated. And all of a sudden, there's a tax debt of $100,000. The IRS holds equally you liable for the tax debt. So you're thinking innocent spouse relief program, right? Think again, it's very wrong, and the IRS is quick to reject it, especially if you live in one of the community property states such as California, because they held that all that income while you're married belong to you equally to the both of you. And you know what? You're thinking, why the hell does this program even exist if they're going to just throw it out? I've seen firsthand how they just are quick to reject under the most unfairest conditions. But I have successfully negotiated the innocent spouse relief on behalf of my clients using the totality of the circumstances approach, which let's go ahead and get rid of the term innocent spouse. And let's review the totality of the circumstances. And we would want to show why it's completely unfair to have one spouse liable for these taxes. Okay, upon divorce, you have this cloud. And you're thinking sometimes going through divorce, it goes through state court, and sometimes even the courts say, okay, one spouse is liable for tax debt, the other spouse is not. And that's great. That's one piece of evidence that does help out. But let's dive deep further. So I mean totality of the circumstances. Let's review the reasons why somebody would owe coming out of a marriage. And the first and foremost is quality of life throughout the marriage. The quality of the life itself. Did one spouse live a life of luxury in a mansion, in the spouse where they kept chained up in some raggedy apartment in the hood? That's a completely different quality of life, don't you say? Also, regarding financial information, which spouses made decisions? Which spouses had access to financial records? Did you have joint bank accounts? Did you know where the other spouse worked interchangeably? This way, you kind of had an idea how much money was coming in, how much money was going out through the bills, all through financial records. So, did you have access to your spouse's records? And if not, what were the reasons why you didn't have access? Because it makes a pretty big difference. You had no idea what was going on in the finances. And if you're physically restricted from not even accessing these financial records. Next on up is the actual filing of the tax returns and knowledge of the filing of the tax returns. And you don't want to get caught into the lie. Because sometimes one spouse says, well, I don't know what occurred. But upon interviewing and even involving a tax professional that did returns on a joint account, it's very important to kind of get their feedback and even get an answer back from them. What records do you have that both spouses were present or both spouses were involved in the filing of these tax returns? Did they e-sign? Did you have knowledge-based authentication questions for each of the different spouses? And if one of the spouses says, well, I did sign, but I didn't know what I was signing, that doesn't fly with the IRS. But if legitimately you had no clue they were even filed throughout the marriage, you probably would wonder, hey, are we in tax filing compliance? What's going on with the taxes? Or maybe it was implied that the other spouse was authorized. But it kind of goes hand in hand. Were they filed, not filed? And what was your involvement and awareness regarding these tax returns? I'm telling you, all of this matters. One more thing to consider is, when did you become aware that there was a tax debt? Did you realize the moment bills were coming to the house while you're married? Did you just figure this out as you're getting divorced? All of a sudden you're like, holy crap, we have a tax debt. And furthermore, what if your spouse had a P.O. box or a separate address where all the mail was going to? You were unaware. All of this matters. Education-wise, it's probably a little note. It's not one of the biggest deals, but it's what's the highest level of education you guys have? Do you guys both have a doctorate degree, high school dropout, or a 6th grade level at the most? Your educational background may not be one of the biggest deals, but nevertheless, it's part of the totality of the circumstances. Economic hardship is also a factor. When we're doing the 8857, it does have some financial questionnaires in there. It would raise the level of what quality of life do you have now after the marriage? Are you able to sustain yourself and the current bills? And keep in mind, if upon divorce, if it's strictly financially based, that you're not able to pay the bills, the offer and compromise program or non-collectible might be one of the different alternative solutions. Another aspect is legality of this. Is any of the tax debt addressed in the divorce and the dissolution of marriage? Did the judge sign off on the divorce where the attorneys agreed that one person should be held liable and the reasons why? Now, one sensitive topic is, was there any level of abuse in there and was it documented? The abuse could be mental, physical, emotional, and how was it documented? Are there medical records? Are there arrest records? Is there prosecution on the ex-spouse? And by going through this totality of circumstances procedure, or even the innocent spouse relief, a couple of things to consider when it comes to this procedure is the fact that number one agent will be involved and they're going to investigate all of this. And they would include to contact the other spouse. All of it matters. And whenever you do file, one of the things to consider is to keep your stuff private because it will be disclosed to the other party. So if you're using some kind of secret relay phone, a certain PO box from a different state, make sure all of that is implied and not disclosed to the other spouse, whatever shouldn't be disclosed. Which is why when it comes to divorce and taxes, it's one of the most difficult processes you could go through. Now, keep in mind, what happens is the IRS, what they'll do in the background is they'll do something called the mirroring of accounts. That means is before, if you guys were married with a joint tax debt, it'd be one solution for both. So the mirroring of accounts, literally, they're separating not the balances, but the responsibilities. So while it's still one big balance, they're going to hold one spouse liable for their own solution and the other spouse liable for their own, completely separate. Now, the entire balance still may exist. And sometimes if people are amicable, where one spouse says, yeah, I take it on, I'm going to take care of it, I'll pay it off, then so be it, problem solved. Or sometimes you say, you know what, through escrow, or we'll have one joint account moving forward, we'll both pitch in our percentages and we'll make sure that the IRS gets paid on time. Those are dream positions. However, at a point in time when somebody's divorced, generally that doesn't happen.